She is an on-course commentator for LIV Golf, but her work doesn't stop there. You can see her with Jerry Foltz, Fairway to Heaven, one of the new podcasts that LIV has out. Great work there. That conversation she has with Jerry. They bring on a lot of different guests, have a great producer as well. And you can also see her doing Hang Time. That's a nice one-on-one that she has with LIV golfers on the YouTube channel and beyond. She's a former pro golfer. She is a mom. Su-Ann Heng with LIV. I am so stoked to have you on. I really appreciate this. This will be a blast.
Bryan, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. It feels a little weird, I have to admit, being on the other side of the interview chair. I'm usually the
Yes.
one asking all the questions. So no, I'm really excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
And as you being on the other side, I expect to hear an honest evaluation at the end. And I can take the honest criticism. I can take it. So, I'm all about it. So I look forward to at the end hearing what you think. But as we begin this conversation, and I'm Bryan Fenley, a golf broadcaster, and we are on the Honest Upping podcast, a sports media podcast, where we like to shine the human sides of those in the industry as well. Is anytime, Su-Ann, I've seen you hit out of the bunker, your wedge game is so good. How do you get so good, and how have you gotten so good out of the sand?
Oh, wow. That is quite an opening question. I was not expecting that. That was I was like, well, I mean, first of all, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I don't think I'm that good with my wedges. I certainly am nowhere close to what I used to be. But I think a lot of my short game practice came from my experience in Australia. I left Singapore when I was about 14 to move to Western Australia, Perth, more specifically, to pursue the game. I wanted to play more junior golf. I wanted to really develop my game. At that time, golf, and it still is very much an underdeveloped sport here locally in Singapore, which is where I am right now. And so I wanted to leave and I wanted to kind of expand. And so I left and I went to Australia, worked with a coach out there. And, in Australia, they're very firm surfaces. And their bunker, specifically to your question, is a bit more powdery. You really have to use the bounce. You really need to be able to flick your wrist a little bit more and stuff like that. So that's how I practiced for most of my sort of developmental years in golf growing up.
When you were 14 and you made that move from
Mhm.
Singapore to Australia, how hard was that decision, and what went into weighing that move and doing it?
Oh, just basically you're young and you're like gung ho. You're just, you don't. Can I swear on this
Oh
podcast?
yeah, whatever. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
okay. I was
Yes.
just gonna say, I was just gonna say, you don't give a shit when you're younger, right?
Yeah.
You have this goal and you know this is where you want to go. This is what you want to do. And nothing could possibly be in that way of a dream of a 14-year-old kid. So, I think at the time I just knew that, being here wasn't gonna get me where perhaps I would have wanted to. Um, Thankfully, I think I have to give props to Singapore. I think we've grown in so many ways on a sporting front. But at the time, when I was 14, I felt the need to leave. I wanted to get more exposure. I wanted to play with bigger competition. I wanted to um, have the facilities to be able to practice. My coach that I was working with was based out there. So it just seemed like it made a lot of sense for me to do that. Now, it was obviously a very difficult decision, at that age, leaving my family. I left alone. So my family stayed back in Singapore. And I had to live with host families in Western Australia. Had to obviously sacrifice friendships and, a sense of belonging to a place that obviously I was very proudly born and raised in. So I think at the time, just though, you don't really think through those things. You just go, okay, I want to play golf. I want to be really good at golf. At the time, Tiger was, it still is, right, a very influential part of my childhood. And, watching him do that, I wanted to do the same, or at least try to do the same, excuse me. So yeah, so I left, and that was, a difficult decision. I think probably more so for my parents than it was for me at the time. And now looking back, and I tell people this all the time, now as a parent myself, and my son's 3 going 4 this year, I can't imagine sending him off with my full blessings in 10 years time by himself, that that would have been so difficult for my parents.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because you posted this really beautiful note on Instagram where you were talking about your son's first day at school. And you were saying, I don't know if my son's going to cry more or I'm going to cry more. And so you are already looking at what would the 14-year-old version of him be, considering the big change that you made.
Mhm.
But looking back on that first day of school for your son, who ended up getting more emotional on that day?
I mean, definitely him, I would say. I mean, I think, it was, as we all know, I don't know if you're a parent yourself, Brian, but, for
Soon to
the
be
parents who
one
are,
day soon.
okay, okay, well, the parents who are listening, and I think they can relate to this, is that it is so tough, and it is, you never want to watch your kid cry, no matter what the issue is, whether it's first day of school when he's 2, or maybe a breakup in the future, or didn't get to the college you wanted to, or maybe you lost a football game, whatever it might be. You never want to watch your kid cry. I mean, as a parent, it just hurts, right? But on that day, I mean, we dropped him off, and yeah, I cried in my car. I didn't want him to see me cry when I dropped him off, only because, not because I wanted to pretend or anything, but I didn't want him to associate school with like sadness. I wanted him to kind of relate school to something happy and exciting and fun, and an opportunity to learn, and an opportunity to socialize with your friends, and do fun things. And so yeah, so I held my tears as long as I could, and I went into my car, and I was like, my son's all grown up, and he's like 2. So it's like, it was certainly, I think for any parent, it's a daunting experience. But he's now been in school for just a little over a couple of years, and he's loving it. He's looking forward to it pretty much just about every day. We're starting to get to that phase, though, that's like, mommy, I don't want to go to school, and I feel like that ain't gonna change for another, let's see, 18 years, right? Yeah, around about 18 years. The I don't want to go to school thing ain't gonna stop from here on out for me.
So when he brings that up to you, what is your response?
Um, I usually just go, I try and ask why, I try and ask why first. Maybe something had happened, or maybe, yeah, something about the school he doesn't like, but he's a kid, right? And so I ask him why, and he's like, I don't want to go to school. I want to stay home, and I want to play. I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't any? I don't want to go to work, right?
Yeah.
Well, now I do, because I got my dream job, but I think I then say, well, Case, it's going to be so much fun. I mean, don't you want to see your teachers and your friends? You're going to have to get to play with your friends. You're going to draw. You're going to learn some really cool things. You might learn a new word today. And I try and just like, make it sound like and it is. It's an exciting time. And I always tell him too, I said, you're so blessed and you're lucky. And at this age, you don't quite understand, but I do tell him, like, you're so lucky to be able to go to school. It's such a great opportunity for you. And, some kids don't get to do that. So, and then I usually have to bribe him with something to get him out the door, whether it's a cookie or a little slice of chocolate or a little packet of yogurt, whatever it might be at the time. But yeah, he's just, he goes through phases, as with every kid does. So that's what I tell him.
How do you feel blessed watching him grow in front of you?
Oh my God. Wow. Are you trying to make me cry, Brian? I mean, I've just put makeup on, bud. Like
So
I just
so
like
so
I
let me tell you
literally
this.
just like
So let me tell you this. I take it as, so my fiance, she is studying to be a therapist. And she
Congratulations, by the
Yes,
way.
thank you. By the way, I was nervous if she was going to say yes or no. But literally, I kid you not, Su-Ann, she has these pillows, and it's like boundaries, and it's all of these like mental health little jargon to learn. So maybe that influence of being that person that gets people to talk about things might be rubbing off from her.
Mhm.
But I love going and learning about a person and making them feel comfortable to be able to talk about these things. And
No, no, I get it. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. That's what I try and do with players too. It's um, try and maybe humanize them, right? I think for me, I mean, I as a uh coming from a place of, and we'll circle back to your question in just a little bit, but like I think, for me as a fan, first of all, golf fan, right? But also a lot of these guys that I get to now work alongside with are people that are my idols growing up, right? I mean, I watch these guys, a lot of these guys inspire me to pursue the game and to really take that leap of faith to move to Australia and then go to college in America and like put myself out there and play competitive golf. So, but at the same time, the more time I spend with them, um, the more I realize they're just as human as we are, the guys who have kids, they take their kids to school, they change the diapers, they get shit on and peed on and vomited on, just like any of us parents. And, and I think that is so, you know what it's like, right? I'm sure you're a fan of someone, you might be a fan of a basketball player or a football player, golfer, maybe even perhaps. And you just you're like, oh my gosh, just like, you don't really think of the human side of them.
you
You just
don't.
go, they're just like superheroes to us, right? Especially for me growing up. So it's like to be able to hear their side of life, whether it's a home thing or whether it's something they might be going through. I feel like that's so intriguing. So I do appreciate that you're trying to do the same thing to me or with
Well,
me.
you do. One of the things I wanted to bring up is I was going to ask you, because when you do the hang time stuff, you
Mhm.
get the golfers to say things that open up in beautiful ways. And so I definitely wanted to ask you the way in which you do that, because I think you do a great job. I've watched a ton of those. But yeah, not to interject there, but you do as good of a job in this industry as I've seen in getting your interviewee to go in a certain way with a conversation where they're comfortable and they tell you some really informative, entertaining, and insightful stuff.
That's very kind, Brian. I mean, I really I do appreciate it. It's I don't know. I just like I said, I think it does circle back to a little bit about what I said. It's realizing for me that they are human and they are the same as most of us. Maybe it's a different career, a different career path. Maybe it might come with different challenges. They might feel different pressures. Um, but at the same time, we're all at the very core of all of us, we're all humans, right? We all have the same kind of basic needs. We all need to eat, drink, feel the need to be loved, feel the need to be respected, feel the need to belong, feel the need for community. Those things don't change on a human level. As with, I think with the players, I have to give them as much credit as you're giving me. I think they too perhaps, I don't know, maybe feel like safe, or maybe there is a sense of trust. And I think for me and for us at Live Broadcast, I think we've always kind of been very much, we have our players' backs. We're not trying to do anything. We're trying to actually bring out sort of a different side or a better or a good side, and a side that might be perhaps misunderstood. And we're not trying to up one on you, if that
Yeah,
makes any sense.
totally. Makes total
As
sense.
I'm trying to be as candid as I can be. But I don't, I'm very lucky in the sense that, um, thankfully, I first of all, thankfully, I get the opportunity to do those things. Second of all, that the players feel some kind of trust with me too. So I feel very lucky about that, and I think it's more credit to them than it is me, to put themselves in a position to share some things and be funny and be themselves, and be able to kind of show that side of them to the rest of the world. There are so many, I'm sure, kids and golf fans who idolize a lot of these guys. So I think it's really cool that they are able to share that with people. And I think it's incredibly brave, in some ways.
How does that make
Yeah.
you feel when you see them? And they might even say this afterwards when you're doing an episode of Hang Time where the golfer will say, "Wow, I didn't know we were going to go there, but that was a great conversation. I really love that." And like you said, it might be something of courage. As an interviewer, you mentioned this. One of the things in life we all want is a sense of acknowledgement or validation, connection, or love. Where does that and all of that sit with you when you have a golfer say something like that, and how much he enjoyed that conversation with you afterwards?
It usually takes me a little while to kind of debrief myself and digest really, what they're telling me, and how much they share, and just really, to me, most of all, is just sort of seeing them smile and you know kind of have a good time, right? I mean, I think it usually takes me a while. There's usually so much happening, it's cameras moving everywhere, and it's like we're in the middle of a pro-am, and there's other players, and there's a lot going on during the shoot. And so, I try, and obviously you have to pay attention to what they're saying, but then in terms of like digesting it myself and really internalizing the experience, I would say, usually takes me days, sometimes weeks, sometimes till the end of the season. Usually the end of the season. To really kind of sit back and go, oh wow, and I do rewatch a lot of the stuff and realize how awesome they are, the players are, and it's an honor, really. I don't know how to better say that, because it truly is. I'm still pinching myself on a daily basis that I have this job and I'm doing this job, and I have the opportunity to do these things and have the time with the players, and I'm really appreciative of that. But yes, it takes me a while to internalize it, and it's great. I think it's a team effort, just with anything, right? We have great producers, we have great camera guys to capture those moments. The players, as I've said, that's probably the biggest part of this. I'm just kind of, I don't know, to me, I'm just kind of in the back. I'm just trying to maybe show that side of them a little bit better. So yeah.
Well, it's an honor to show this other side of you. I mean, obviously, we see a lot of your personality come out in these interviews. And you said it when you're doing these one on ones with the golfers, and sometimes they put you to the task of being a caddy, which is probably a reverse of roles that you're used to.
Yeah.
But here you are, you're listening to what the player is saying, and then you're formulating your next question. And then, like you said, it could be a pro-am. So there's all of these other distractions going on. How does being it, at a one point in your life, being a pro golfer and dealing with those distractions of playing at a tournament and having all these things going on, how does just being in those experiences help you as an interviewer in a way to which you can weed out all of the other stuff that's going on, and you can, as best as you can, live in the moment with that person that you're interviewing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it is difficult. I think, first of all, I'm nervous as hell, right? I think a lot of people probably don't know that, right? I get nervous. I'm like, as I'm prepping, and I'm waiting for them to come through the hole that we've, agreed to meet on and stuff like that, and the logistical stuff. Um, I'm waiting there and I'm, for lack of a better word, I'm shitting myself, right? I'm just like, I am nervous. It doesn't matter who I'm interviewing. I get kind of that same first tee vibe as I would in any tournament that I've played in growing up. And um, I don't know. I think I try and just embrace it. I try and just realize where it's coming from and the intention of the nervousness. And I think through just obviously playing golf and having some tools in my shed to assist with those nerves, right? Whether it's through breathing or whether it's through really going through my prep and really going through my questions. I know kind of, okay, I have X amount in the back of my head, however long the hole is. Um, and most of the time we deviate and we talk about something else depending on what they express and what they say. But then I have those questions in my, the back of my head. So I just like anybody, I am human. You slip sometimes and you forget your train of thought or you forget what you're going to say because there is so much going on. But I think from a golf like experience perspective, it definitely helps. I mean, it's funny, I've never really thought about it that way till you just brought it up. So this is as kind of a aha moment for
Yeah.
me. But I think most of it's like more just the breathing and just the, okay, let's just slow. When I got nervous in golf and I got the jitters, and by the way, I've been through the yips. So during those times, the key is just for me, I remind myself to just breathe and just like just
Mhm.
slow it down and just like,
Yeah.
and I try and just really listen to what they're saying. And I think that is the hardest things about interviews is like being an active listener um, in the process of while you have the cameras, while you're trying to carry his bag, while you're watching, while you have to hit a shot. Sometimes I have to play the hole too. So then I'm like, shit, don't embarrass yourself. Like, and quite often it's like a last minute decision. So I haven't warmed up. Right? So it's like all this shit's going on. And maybe in some ways it is a form of distraction. Maybe it does help me be more in the present in some backward way. But there are times where it is difficult. I'll admit, like it is a challenge to really actively be present with the player, or for example, Greg Norman, if I'm talking to him in the middle of our broadcast. It's tough. And I think it just takes a little bit of extra discipline and I think that helps from a golf experience side, being able to just use those little tools that I've had. Very little, because I sucked when I played, but
Oh,
um,
stop it. No.
yeah, no, really, but very little of those experiences would, come into play, and it does help big time. Yeah.
Here's what I hear from you. I hear over the course of this conversation, you're short selling yourself. And why do I think that? Because I think you're really hard on yourself. And as a competitor with your experiences, I'm sure like being hard on yourself is the only way to get better. And you have to have that perfectionistic like gene. And I can hear that sort of playing itself out here when you're doing work in an interview or in a broadcast.
Mhm.
With that said, if you were to change that in a way, what do you think that would look like? It's hard though, because being hard on ourselves is what makes
Mhm.
us better.
Yeah.
But where is there a line drawn where you're like, okay, I know I need to be hard on myself, but at the same time, like you've said, sometimes it's hard to imagine and really accept and feel the moment of what you've done until afterwards, where like you've done some really cool things and sometimes it might take a little while for that to sort of resonate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I could not imagine what it would be like on the other side, should it flip around and I'm just totally happy with my day's work. I joke with a lot of my friends or peers, and more often than not, I'm usually not happy uh, with my day's work. There's usually things, or it doesn't matter if I'm doing commentary or if I'm doing hang time or if I'm doing at the time, prior to this career, I was on radio, and then and I still am doing hosting. I MC events, whether it's corporate to fashion shows, car launches, all that stuff. No matter which environment I'm in, I'm always sort of dissatisfied with something. It's always something. And it's just like golf, right? And it's I see a lot of parallels to the way I was on the golf course as a competitor to now as perhaps a broadcaster. I There's always that one putt you could have made, right? If I should have picked a 54 degree instead of a 60 degree from that rough. What an idiot. Like that would have, I would have flubbed it, if I took a less lofted club, whatever it might be. How the fuck do you miss a 2-footer? Right? So many times you go, oh, it's that putt that makes a difference with the cut. Right. So you just go, oh. But then now I see the same sort of similarities with my evaluation of what I do. And you're right, I am very hard on myself. I've been told that probably way too many times in my career.
I do that too.
Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that will ever change. It's certainly something that I am working on, and kind of trying to be a little um not to sound cliche, but a little kinder and gentler to myself. And it's often very difficult to do because you're right. I always feel the need to be a better version of myself than I was yesterday. Whether that's in my career, whether that's as a mother, or whether that's as a friend or a daughter. And so it doesn't stop, I don't think. And my first coach used to tell me, the day you stop learning is the day you die. And so I've always taken that into my sort of everyday life, whether that's me cooking or whether that's me being a mom or me as a commentator. And yeah, I mean, it's I could never imagine it being the other way around. Let's just put it that way. To answer your question, I don't think that could ever happen.
Well, part of it is good for being one to always want to get better at what they're doing. You're
Mhm.
in your position because you're a hard worker and you're a go-getter, constantly learning and very talented. And part of that being hard on yourself is connected to that. What I'm curious is, when do you find it easier or easiest in life? And this could be outside of work, this could be
Mhm.
with your son or with your family, where it's easiest for you to be most happy with the person you are and just that, and not feeling like you have to be, oh, I could have, like, if you're on the golf course, I should have made this or I should have done that. Wherever in life you feel most comfortable in just being Su-Ann Heng as you are that day.
That's a really good question. I it's funny because I'm not actually the only time I'm not that way is if I'm not in a role of some sort, right? Um if I'm just going, I always say this to people. I mean, music's a big part of my life. It's probably, if not at par with golf, certainly comes pretty darn close. And I'm a big music fan. I love music. And so the only time, thankfully, at least there's one, so that's a positive, right? The time that I
Yes.
really just on it, for a lack of better term, quoting Dua Lipa, is IDGAF, um, is when I'm actually at a concert, at a physical concert, when I'm sitting there or standing or dancing to music. Um, and having a nice adult beverage in my hand. And I am completely just in the moment, and really I'm not conscious of what I look like or how I sound like or what I'm doing. I'm not being a mom at that point. I am not being a commentator. I'm just there where I just let my hair down, and really just music has that ability, right? It has that magic of bringing you into the very moment of the song, the note, the instruments, the environment, the vibe, the energy. And so when I'm at a concert, that's the only time where I really just do not care. And I don't evaluate myself. I don't uh criticize myself. Maybe perhaps the next day, if I have one too many adult beverages, I might criticize myself then. But like, no, usually, it's just that's the only time I feel like really just you're in a trance, for no pun intended, uh, in some ways, right? You're in that, in golf terms, you're in the zone. You just, everything's kind of a bit of a blur, but you're in that very moment.
It's so beautifully put. And the way you took self inventory of yourself right there was very inspirational in the fact that you're able to get to that place as hard as it is with everything you've got going on. And you said music, and obviously it's a magical thing for you. How
Mhm.
has it been healing for you too? When you look at your life and where music has come in and really been a healing place.
Oh, wow. It's been my most faithful friend, shall we say, music. I remember, and this is probably I don't know, I might just put myself out there here, but when I had made that move to Australia, as we previously talked about, I very much vaguely remember being very homesick, as one would, right? And especially when your game's not going well, and you're really struggling. I went through injury from at a young age. I had a really bad back. Um, and those really like challenging times when you don't have your family, you don't have your friends, you don't have your community. Um, at the time I was also kind of going through, um, as a woman, and you're going through all these different phases of your life. Um, Music was the only thing that sort of actually quite literally kept me going. It was the one thing that I could lean on, and get me through some of those times, and that's how I kind of got into, very briefly, an interest of learning how to play the guitar. I did vocal lessons. I kind of like shifted a little bit of my passion into that side of things. And then as I venture on throughout my life, from playing, I always had music in my ears, and pregame. I'm sure a lot of most athletes actually do have that. But then through to sitting on airplanes, through to fast forward to being a radio DJ, to now I never not have, this is the only time I don't have music playing in the house, is if I'm doing a podcast or recording a podcast. Every morning when I get ready for work, or when I get ready to do anything, I have music. I sleep with music majority of the time. So it's a big part of my life. It's like I said, it's really, I call it a friend, and that I just, it's the most faithful thing I've had in my life, basically.
When you think about that friend, that ally in music that it's been for you, what are you most drawn to? Is it the lyrics? Is it
Typically,
the
yeah.
beat? And how do you differentiate what song resonates with you most?
I would say, first of all, typically the lyrics. I'm very much, I love reading about how they write the songs. I love reading about the birth of the song. Um, I love knowing that sometimes they write it in 10 minutes. So maybe they take 6 months, they
Yeah.
shelve it for 6 months and they write it again. But typically it is the lyric. And I think it's very much, when I look at my music library, it's very reflective on where I'm at in my life. And the music that I listen to very much is how I feel, depending on my Arlo, who's on our team, he's also a music buff himself. He loves, Bruce Springsteen, and he likes, Oasis. And we always talk about music all the time on the road. And, we always talk about like, just how powerful it is, because you can hear the lyrics and it resonates with you at different times. Like now I might listen to a song that I listened to when I was 15 that was a very much a pivotal song for me, and I listen to it now and it speaks to me differently. And I think that's what I always say this, and I've said this multiple times, that is the most beautiful thing about music, is that good music, it's timeless. I don't care if you listen to something from the 50s now, it still is good music. Good music is good music. It doesn't matter. So that's how I see it, as definitely the lyrics. And then I just see it as like, a lot of the times you can hear, whether it's an upbeat song, you can hear the pain, right? And sort of the hardship that the artists have been through, and then you find out that that song is about death, or
Yeah.
you find out the song's about divorce, or you find out that the song's about being a parent. There's always a backstory, right? And so I'm always intrigued about that stuff, and it's always kind of drawn me into music in that way. And yeah, I hope I answered your question. I don't know if I did. That was a very
You
big.
did, and much more, which is why you're so good at what you do. How or when was the last time you wrote lyrics? I know you said that you used
I've
to, or maybe
never I've never written lyrics in my life. I'm not a lyricist. Is
there you go.
that
Yeah,
right?
lyricist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. I don't. I just have a real appreciation for it. I have a real appreciation because it is poetry. It's writing. And whether you go into hip hop, or whether I could talk about hip hop, or you talk about Sade, there is art in the writing, and I don't write myself. I just appreciate it from afar. I appreciate the writing, and sometimes the brilliance in the English language, and how they um, play around with rhymes, especially in hip hop. It's brilliant. So yeah, so I've never written a song before, not yet.
if you were, what do you think it would sound like?
Oh my God. Ah, it would be at the I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm a bit of a sappy marshmallow type human being. So it will be something about, probably combination of, it would definitely, I think most of it would be about being a parent. Right? It'll come from that, it'll stem from that, because that's what is the most important thing to me. Is being a mom, and being uh, an the guiding light for
Yeah,
my son. So if I were to write a lyric, it would probably be about that.
that would be something that I would want to listen to. So please, when
Don't
that
speak
time,
too soon yet.
not that you have the time with your schedule, your family commitment, and then your travel schedule, which is about to pick up in a big way here,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
that would certainly be powerful. And I think a lot of people would really get behind that and feel like that story would resonate with them. And you mentioned it, being a mom, and there's so many things that you can prepare for,
Mhm.
in talking to your own family and being like, hey, this is what it was like, being the mom for you. And with all of that said, what has been the biggest surprise, and it could be a beautiful thing, that you weren't expecting, in that what entails being a mom, and that role and everything that it's about?
Motherhood is it It really has taught me so much about myself. Um, it showed me a lot of different sides of me that perhaps I've never quite felt or experienced previously. I know people always say this to every sort of expecting parent. Oh, you'll never love anyone as much as you love your child. And you just go, okay, I mean, yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense, right? But then once you have your kid and especially as a mother, you carry a child for 9 months, and then you go through the whole birthing process, to the whole the breastfeeding, to the there's all sorts of very different phases. And now he's 4. Well, he's turning 4. And through those times, you learn a lot about resilience. You learn a lot about love. You learn a lot about, I think it's made me reflect how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
It's made me reflect how I want to be as a parent. It's made me reflect the example that I want to set. It certainly made me reflect who I want to be and what's important to me. It's made me understand boundaries. It certainly has helped. uh I've always been terrible with saying no to things and people. um but that has helped me, because then my time is being prioritized. um and it also has actually taught me the value of friggin', I think most moms can relate to this. It brings appreciation to serenity, the word serenity, and having that sort of time and that moment of quietness for yourself. Give me 1 second. I need to
Yes.
put my charger in.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise, I'm
Absolutely.
gonna disappear from your
Where did she
screen,
go?
which won't be ideal.
It would
That will
not.
make your editing process a lot harder. Okay, I'm good.
You're there.
Okay.
So you're yeah,
But yes,
serenity.
yeah. So, it's definitely like, I think it's brought out a lot of, I have this, like, also that mama bear. I always joke with, people, I have that mama bear instinct about me. I have always been that way. I'm very protective of my circle of people, whether it's my family or whether it's my good friends, now my colleagues, who I call my extended family now. And I'm very even protective in some ways of our our players and our league. And and I feel the need to, like, so I have that in me that I never, it never quite came out as prevalent as it does now as a mother. I and so, there's all these different things that I'm still am and learning about myself. And here's the thing about motherhood, is that you're constantly changing. I saw this on Instagram as a post, so I don't want to steal it from whoever posted it. I don't remember who did. But as a mother, you change. You don't just stay the same throughout your life. It's not like, okay, I'm now 35 years old and I'm just going to be this person for the rest of my life. You go through those phases with your child, and those phases and those challenges then shapes you as a person. And so you're constantly growing, you're constantly changing, your priorities will constantly change, your boundaries will constantly change. Obviously your core values and your core principles, all those things will stay the same, but the working parts of it all as a mother will change with the chapters that your kid goes through. So, like, what I was when I was a newborn mom to now being a toddler mom, it varies, right? It's a little different. So it's really interesting, and I'm still, learning. I'm still learning, and as always with everything that I do, it's just I'm learning how to be better. I'm learning how to be more patient. I'm learning how to communicate with a 3.5-year-old kid, who's going through a tantrum. Um, And so those are the things that I think, I don't know, are shining through more so now that I'm a mom, compared to when I wasn't.
Learning seems to be at the focal point of who you are. You said it earlier.
Yeah.
The day you die is the day you stop learning. And not that there's a whole lot that you need to learn when it comes to golf because you're dominating in that
Oh,
sphere.
oh
And when it
no, there's a lot. I get there's a whole list.
well, again, you're being hard on yourself. But when you think about that love for learning, obviously in golf and in
Mhm.
television and all of your experiences there, and then being a mom, but unrelated to music, motherhood, and sport, what drives your curiosity when you step outside of those realms? It interests you the most.
Oh, um, I think I don't know. I've always been quite intrigued about like just us as a human race and what makes us tick,
Yeah.
and uh how some things are more important to other people than perhaps myself, and maybe some things that are more important to me might not be as important for you, you know, um and human connection, I think, is definitely one of the reasons why I'm always so curious. I think there's always so much to learn about people's stories and people's lives and history, and I don't know, I just always am curious about that, and I don't know, I've always been, I like being, I'm a fairly social person. I'm trying to get the words out of my mouth. So I think human connection's kind of a one of my core
Yeah.
parts of why I tick and what makes me excited about life is just feeling that sense of like connection with a friend or someone that I might have just met on a train, or, and having a conversation with people. So I think that's probably, if you were to take and strip everything away from that, I would think that would be kind of one of the main driving forces.
That's well said. And when you talk about excitement and you talk about 2024,
Mhm.
what about 2024 is driving your excitement?
It's hard not to acknowledge the fact that our season is starting on the 2nd of Feb. Um, it is career is a huge part of my existence at the moment. I love it. It's literally my dream job, and so, anytime and I'm very, very, very lucky to be able to have another year with the league, and be able to do this one more time. And I'm not sure how long this will continue. So I think I always go to every year as this could be my last, or, I bring that perspective because let's be honest, this is an entertainment industry, right? And I've learned that, and that nothing ever lasts forever. So, so I go in it kind of really with a mindset of like, I'm going to sponge as much as I can, learn as much as I can. I'm lucky enough to be working with some truly amazing, amazing human beings that you've already had two of them on your show, James Watson, we've got
Yes.
Keith Hirschland, and then, the rest of, our announced team, we've got Arlo White, David Faraday, Jerry Foltz, Don Boulay, and then obviously the guys also behind the scenes, our camera crew, to our producers, our what would we call it, live studio
Yeah.
guys. um and there's always stuff to sort of learn from all those people, and I'm very, very lucky to be surrounded by some of the best in the business, and I see myself as someone who's quite junior. And so I always feel like I there's so much more to learn about how things work behind the scenes, how they film this, how they produce this, how do they cut it. I go into the truck every now and then, and I'm still blown away at what Keith and everyone in the truck does, because we have so many cameras, we have so many shots, and at LIV Golf, as we know, it is a lot faster. So it's all like really intriguing to me. So that is something that I'm really looking forward to. I always look forward to that, and really just being back on the road as a traveling circus with my team, which I'm very lucky that we have some of the best chemistry. You know, in at least in my very biased opinion, obviously. You know, I love spending time with those people, and love sitting there after, you know, the round and having a cold drink and, you know, kind of unloading and talking and having a great time. That's, oh, you know, that is one of the highlights of my time on the road. But this year, obviously, a few new locations we're going to. We have obviously John Rahm on board. He's got his own team. We don't know who's on it yet. So that's really exciting too. Some locations I've never been to, and some, more specifically, are coming back to my hometown of Singapore, and bringing our guys back into my backyard. That's really cool. I know we're going to Hong Kong, which is amazing. Dom's really excited about that. So there's just so much to look forward to this year. I think it's going to be, and with what's been unfolding, you know, in the last, I would say, month, you know, in the golf industry with um, everything that's going on. I don't know. I think we have a lot to look forward to. I think things are looking positive. And for me, I am just personally excited to get back on the road, get back to doing what I love to do, get back to seeing the people that, um, as I said, you know, it's all connection, right? I love seeing everybody. We all are lucky to be able to have a crew, not just our announce team, but our producers, our um, graphics guys, to our live studio people, to, and we all just have this really fun working environment. And so, you know, as an announcer, I think that's really, it doesn't get any better than that. And then on top of that, I get to be around a sport that I love and I'm so passionate about, and to be able to also be around the highest level athletes in the game of golf, um, is, I think, is exciting. It's every year is exciting for me, doing the job that I'm doing right now.
Gratitude and talent are some of the key tenets when we think about what you've done and are doing. And as we sort of wrap up this conversation, you talk about how fun the work environment is that you're
Mhm.
around, and I'm so excited to see it all play out in 2024. But this conversation has been a really fun environment as well. And you talked about the human connection. This has been a great connection. I really enjoyed this, considering that we are 16 time zones apart. I'm in Los
I
Angeles
know.
and you're in
Which part of
Singapore.
LA are you at right now?
I am like right by the airport, just south of the airport.
Okay.
So El Segundo area, if you're
Okay.
familiar with there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm
Yeah.
there. I'm thinking about coming out for your Vegas event. So I would love to see you all. It'd be great
That would be
to
fun.
support
Yeah,
all of
you
you.
need to, you ought to come and do a you know, pardon me, you ought to come and do a little site visit
It'd be
to
fun. I'd love to see
the
all of you.
compound side, and yeah,
Yeah.
you'll just be like, oh. I remember the first time I arrived, my very first gig, which was London at 2022. And I always say this, I tell this story to, you know, even we still talk about this till today within our team. And, you know, I remember I had never experienced like US production, right?
Mhm.
And international production. And so when I first arrived in London, I was like, holy shit. Like, what? You know, you know, because from like, suddenly we have like a talent manager, Holly, whom we love so much, and she's become so much of a, to me anyway, such form of family. But then I am usually doing everything myself. I'm handling stuff myself. I don't have a hair and makeup person. I usually do that stuff myself. And like those little sort of nuances and things that happen on a US broadcast scale. I was actually, that made me, if I was already nervous, right? But that made me more nervous. I'm just like, oh my goodness, like the actors, I felt this like expectation of just like, not to mention the pressure of the fact that we were such a controversial thing, and like everybody was like had their eyes on our first event. Was it going to be like, and all that. So all those things aside, plus then now it's like my first experience like having that kind of experience. I was just like, I was honestly like so nervous. I was so nervous. And I remember they told me in a production meeting, all right, so, your first interview on Thursday, I think the time we started on Thursday for London. I'm going to need you to talk to Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson on the first tee. We're going to do a walk and talk. And, and I just remember sitting there going, I mean, on the outside, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, of course, yeah. But then on the inside, I was like, what? Phil, Phil, you want me to interview Phil and Dustin Johnson all at the same time on the first tee, the first day we go live on the broadcast. Like, I joke about this now. I must have probably like read through my like, and it wasn't even that many questions, right? It was like two, three, one each, two questions maybe each. And I must have ran through those questions on the side of the green room. I like to say about 50 times, maybe more, maybe north of 50. Because I was just thinking was, don't fuck it up. Just like, like to be as honest and like transparent as possible. That's like how like nervous I was, and until today I still have those same sort of jitters um on the start of our broadcast every single day.
Here's the thing though. A little like jitters are good. Like I think there's a stigma like, oh, you're not you personally, but like
Yeah.
when we're doing a broadcast, it's like I need to be this and that. But what I love about this conversation is that you really do epitomize, and this sounds, I don't know if it's cliche or whatever, but you are who you are. And like
Yeah.
that came out. And like you're not pretending to be somebody. And what I love about this is, hey, this is who I was. This is how I felt going into that first broadcast. But guess what? News for you, Su-Ann. You didn't show it as far as the nerves. It's so interesting when we like if we get nervous in front of a camera or we do something, we overthink how much of that is actually translating outwardly
Mhm.
because because we can be our harshest critics. So like
Yes.
you might have thought, oh gosh, I got to make sure this is this and this is this, and but like it never, from my experiences, and I'm sure for you too, it never is as nervous looking
Mhm.
than we think it is. And so
Yeah.
I would think that yeah, that definitely plays a part.
There's a little acting involved,
Yes,
it's just
yes.
it's a little like, okay, let's put your best like Hollywood face on and just like try and mask it as best as possible. I mean, you see some of the most talented musicians go through,
Oh yeah.
stage fright and stage anxiety, and yeah, I know some presenters that have gone through the same thing, and it is difficult because you are so exposed. You're the one in front of the camera, right? And you're the one that's going to be saying shit. So it's like what you say need to like matter, what you say need to make sense, what you say need to be as well delivered as possible. And then on top of that, you gotta smile and you gotta like really look good. It's just like you say that there's a lot going on. Like
There is a
you
lot
know?
going on.
Yeah. And um, like I said, I've just been, I would say one of the biggest help for me in the last couple of years in terms of my journey learning and like getting better is like being around some of the veterans of sports broadcasting. I mean, if you look at someone like Arlo White, he is I hate that I'm saying this because we give each other crap all the time, and he's a brother to me, but he's
No.
so freaking good. He's so freaking good, and like I try and sort of observe what he does and how he preps, and I always, I don't know if I'm going to remember this right, but one of my best friends who is a sports psychologist used to tell me this. Um, for no, proper preparation avoids a piss poor performance.
Yeah,
I think that's the saying. Don't quote me on that, but
that sounds right.
I look at Arlo, and Arlo, if you were to see how he preps, we never see Arlo, by the way, ever. I don't know if he's gonna hate me for saying this. We call him the eternal flame, because mind you, his job is so hard, right? Let's not discount the fact that the league is a much faster pace than your traditional golf. Then on top of that, you add the team format. Then on top of that, you add the pylon. You add all these different things, and then as the season ends, you have the individual championship. There's all these like calculations that need to happen that Jerry is so good at.
Mhm.
And of course then you have David Faraday that just comes in and he just punches his lines, and it's just there's so much gravitas to what he says because those are the things that he's had so much experience doing, and he's so talented. But Arlo, if you look at the way Arlo preps, we never see him. That's why we call him the eternal flame. He never goes out. So, he's in his room and he's jotting notes and he's printing shit and he's right. He has his card that's like this big with like staples in it with teams and stats and what they did and their standings, and so he has those nuggets that he can just go right into as a play-by-play guy. Um, he's someone you should definitely have next on your
I would love
podcast
that.
because he is just so and don't tell him I said this, but he's
Of
so
course not.
goddamn talented.
He
He's
is
so
very,
good.
very talented. Well, all of you are. And like it's like you said earlier, it's a chemistry thing. And
Yeah.
like you can generally tell, and I'm not just saying this because I know a lot of people will say with other TV crews and stuff like this, but you can generally, I believe, you can notice like as a TV broadcast professional like you and I are, you can tell if the chemistry with everybody is good off camera by the way they interact on camera. I really do believe that. Now
Mm-hmm.
the common traditional, or just your regular sports fan who flips on the television and will happen to watch LIV Golf might not see it sometimes, but it just depends. But those who really get this industry will clearly know, okay,
Mm-hmm.
they like to have a lot of fun when they're not working. Like, and you can tell that. And that's what I'm saying. You can tell that. So,
By the way, just I don't know how much time I have, and you can always clip this out, but that's the whole that's actually the how Fairway to Heaven, which is our
yeah.
podcast, a live golf podcast, that's how it was birthed. By the way, it wasn't like they just randomly put the two of us together to do this thing. That the backstory to that um, is that we're all sitting at a bar together as we always do. That's where you can definitely find our live golf broadcast people. It's always by the bar, but Jerry and myself, we were all sitting there, and I was sitting next to Jerry and a couple of our bosses and producers, and Keith was there, I think, too. And we were sitting there, and Jerry and I have this like he's like the annoying older brother that I have. Well, I have a brother. He's not annoying, but Jerry's like the annoying, like just like he wants to just like He just
Yeah,
wants to
yeah.
like jab me all the time. And because I do play golf and because I am and have been in the industry where it's very much that way, and you know, in any professional sport, there is always a sense of trash talk.
Sure.
There's always an element of like, if you dish it, you gotta take it. And if you
Hmm.
take it, you gotta dish it, right? So I always had that relationship with pretty much all of them, right? And they're all like my older brothers, as I call them. And so with Jerry, he was just like nudging me that one night and like not like just, and so then I fired back and I was like, screw you. And like, you're old and you're this and you're just this like, what are you even doing here? Like your hair's receding or, you know, whatever it might
Yeah,
be,
yeah,
as
yeah. I
you
know.
would at a dining table with good mates.
Yeah, for sure.
You give each other a hard time. You have a little banter that's
For sure.
friendly.
Yeah,
And so
gently. Yeah.
anyways, then two of our bosses are like, right there. That is our
Wow. Oh, that's so
that's what we
interesting.
need to that's what we need to do.
Wow.
Um that's what we need to do and that's what we want. And you know, and sometimes we talk about golf. That's like, you know, Jerry goes on his rants and I might occasionally go on my rants. I'm not as grumpy as he is because I'm not as old as he is. See, I'm still like poking him here,
I
but
love it.
you know, but so that's how it was birthed, a fairway to heaven. And they were like, why don't we put these numbnuts together and let's go for it. And I know, you know, some people, it's not for everybody. It's not everyone's cup of tea. The banter and the foul language perhaps, and the, you know, like self-deprecating in some ways.
Yeah.
But it is very harmless. You know, Jerry and I, it's we have a very great friendship, and it's but yes, that's kind of the behind the story of how we had
Fascinating.
Fairway to Heaven start. And so, you know, we've done 4 episodes now, and it's so much fun. You know, Jerry's is like you said, he's so talented and he's so smooth, annoyingly smooth. And he's so good at what he does, and he has so much experience. And he's one of you know, I know we talked a little bit about some stuff previously, but you know, I think the biggest thing is to have a great support team no
Hmm.
matter what you do. And he's part of that team for me. And so, you know, we're lucky, man. We're lucky to be able to do what we do, and can't complain.
You, no
I
doubt.
feel like I've just gone through a therapy session of
That is
some
the
sort.
that is, and it's not because I just have these pillows from my fiance, and then literally this is what, you know, clients
But
will
I
get.
love that it says boundaries.
Look at this one. This is great. This is great. All right, Sue, and you got to see this. All right, so this is the pillow that I was laying back on during our whole interview. Your feelings are, and then like literally, let's see if I can squeeze it. Get me closer. And like any
It's
adjective,
awesome.
yeah, any adjective, fill in the blank, and then go from there.
That's
So
great. In the meantime, I have like a cat thingy.
always
It's a
waving,
very like it's a very traditional Asian thing. I also have a cocktail menu behind me.
of course.
Um, yes, and then I have Oscar the Grouch, which is, you know, sometimes I can be a little Oscar the Grouch-ish. And then I've got coasters of some of the legends of the game. There's Jack in there, Arnold's in
Oh,
there,
cool.
Ben Hogan and stuff. So yeah, and then past all that behind that wall, it's a hot mess. So
Well, how often do you water that plant behind you? That's what I'm.
that's fake.
That's.
That's fake. That's fake.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so in Singapore, because we are in the tropics, it's very humid. We're at above the equator. And so we have a lot of rain. It's actually monsoon season right now as we speak. So we do have this thing's called a mosquito issue. So I and I and I travel so much, so I can't afford to have live plants because they'll all just die. So everything in my house that's green is fake.
now here's the thing too. Some people I meet, they name their plants. Are you going that
Oh,
far?
no,
You
no,
don't name your plants.
no, I don't name my plants. We do
Hmm.
name like some of Casey's toys. Um, but that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
this conversation and being able to plant ourselves in completely different parts of the world
I get
and
it.
have
I
this.
get the pun.
Did you
Very
did you
good.
get it? I
I
was wondering if it was gonna stick, and I'm like, Bryan, I don't know if you should do this. I don't know if you should do this. Oh, go for it, go for it, go for it, go for it. And then just see how it goes. And then
It
it
stuck. It
ended it.
stuck.
It it,
It
it, it
stuck.
worked okay. I
Yeah.
try. But Su-Ann, this was so fun. Su-Ann, this was
Thank you
such a
so
blast. I
much.
appreciate just like how forthright you are about your story. And I think people gravitate towards that realness. You being you and understanding the obstacles that you are overcoming, like people love that. And I'm so grateful to be a platform for you to share all of that. And obviously I support you and I love what you all are doing. And I look forward to the time when I can meet all of you all. It'll be a blast. And I
Vegas.
yes, Vegas. And you said what you said to Jerry. I got to ask Jerry. Now he's
Hmm.
got to now respond. So this will be a fun thing.
Oh,
So
this ought to be great.
yeah, yes.
What are you gonna ask him?
So what do you think about that Su-Ann Heng? Like you
Oh
work
my
for
God.
just kidding. Just kidding. Just
No, you have to ask him that. You have to ask him that because I'm sure he's gonna like come up with something stupid.
what happens if I opened up? What happens if I started the interview with that? He'd be like, "Oh,
I think there are two people you need to ask him about. Okay,
okay,
you need to open up with first ask about Arlo White.
okay."
Okay, and then you ask about me, and that will be your entire podcast with
That'll
Jerry
fill at
Phillips.
least an hour. At least. I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
But
But Bryan, thank you so much, man. I mean, it's
yeah,
I had a ton of fun as well doing this, and I appreciate you inviting me on your
yeah,
show and talking about all this stuff that's quite deep.
it
But
is.
no, I appreciate you having me and taking that time to have a chat. So
And before I forget, I remember we started out the conversation and you were going to grade me. I will
oh,
take whatever grade.
what are we talking about? Like, we need to come up with a different type of spectrum because like
Okay.
1 to 10 is like boring. So should we go like I don't know, snore fest, like a
Yeah.
snoring fest,
Yeah. Snorefest.
or like Coachella.
Okay. You're going Coachella. I
I
was
mean,
going, what is that big electronic music festival in Las Vegas? I mean, there's like every weekend there's one there. But it's like the
uh
Daisy Electronic Daisy or something.
see, that's the one music I don't actually listen. I'm sorry to all
Really?
of our ADM listeners. I don't I don't get it. That's the only that and metal I don't get into.
You don't like death metal?
No,
No, no, I'm the same.
no. I respect it though. I'm not about
Yeah.
to like talk shit about it. And so
No, of
I respect EDM too.
course.
So but yeah, so I don't know those festivals. But let's look at Coachella. Let's go to Coachella because it's like hip
Okay.
hop. There's EDM in Coachella,
There is EDM.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would go like you're like let's
Just say
see.
Snorefest. Just say it.
No,
You could just.
no. I had like some of the most fun I've had on any interview.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So I think you're like what's like one of my favorite things to go. You're like
Stagecoach. Did you ever go to Stagecoach in
no.
Coachella Valley? It's literally.
I've never been to a Coachella.
Oh, really?
No.
I've never been to Coachella either, but I've been to a Tiesto concert.
Oh, Tiesto came last year. He
Yeah.
performed in one of our locations. Okay, you're like watching
Paint dry.
which by the way, which is very pleasure. Like I thoroughly enjoyed it. I watched it on TV though, not live. But let's see if it were live. You're like watching Encanto, the cast of Encanto
Wow.
performing the Encanto movie live at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh my gosh. How much do I have to pay you to say that? Because like I should open up every show with that little segment that you said. Like
Oh,
as a
I thought
show
you
open. Like as a
I,
show
I
open.
I thought you were gonna say I need to start the show with like the soundtrack of Encanto.
See, here's the thing. I'm gonna embarrass myself, but I've never seen the movie. Now,
Oh, well, I
but
know you're not embarrassed. You don't have a child, so you don't really have to watch Encanto.
but you know what they say? It's always okay to relive your inner child.
Mhm.
And I'm sure like as a mom, a lot of the things like you remember are kind of playing back out in a way, having a toddler.
Yes, I love, by the way, I love animation movies. It's like one of my guilty pleasures. I watch them in my own time, by the way, with or without my child. But Encanto is great because it's like it hits all these different, like, as Disney is so great at, all these different sort of heartfelt tugging things. And, they cover family conflict to pressure to um pressures of being someone that doesn't have as much gift as perhaps your siblings. There's all these different like morals that you can sort of get out of it or at least relate. I actually cried in that movie. So,
How many
you need to
movies,
watch it.
how many movies other than I mean, and we're gonna count, this conversation because I think you did cry like seven.
I did not
I
cry. I
I cried
have
eight
allergies.
I cried 8 times. You cried 7 times in this interview. How many movies have you cried in watching?
Gosh. Um, I just about I would say, okay, I can't count, but I'll give you the percentage of times that I
Sure.
have cried. I would say I cry like 70%
Okay.
of the times that I watch movies. I'm a sobber.
So
I get too like into the
sure.
characters and like the pain that the grief or
Yeah,
like the breakup, and I get like really sappy about it.
for sure. And I remember you were telling me this story how even watching Lego Movie, you really were tearing up there, and I was like, oh,
No, I didn't tell you that story. That's somebody else.
oh, really?
No, it
That
wasn't
doesn't mean
me.
it didn't. That doesn't mean it didn't happen.
I have not watched a Lego movie, so
Well,
it
there's
didn't
like four
happen.
of them now.
Okay, now Armageddon.
Oh,
Armageddon,
oh
I
wow, yeah.
cried like full on, like big time. A Star is Born,
Mm.
I cried full on, big time.
So
I like
those would
like
be
like not like just like the like one of these, not one of these. I was like,
so like
and
like
then you
all
get
of your makeup was basically like off your face at that point.
yes, and when you cry so hard, you're like you
Yeah.
would
Oh
just like
yeah.
have that. Yeah, yeah, that was that for me.
So
Yeah.
those would be the two movies where you've probably teared up the most.
There's been a few.
Okay.
There's like been a few like chick flicks and stuff that I like have cried.
Like Mean Girls?
No.
No.
That I cried laughing watching Bridesmaids.
How much did you cry when you watched Barbie?
I didn't cry watching
You
Barbie.
didn't?
I love that movie though. I do love that movie. I
I've heard good
appreciate it for
things. Yeah.
yeah, well, like do you live under a cave? Have you not
Well,
watched any movie?
I really liked Oppenheimer. So I know there was like this rivalry between Oppenheimer and Barbie.
At the
And
Golden Globes?
well, like remember the
How do you even have how does that compete? They're like different genres
that's what I
almost. Like
say. Yeah, but they
it's like
wanted yeah. I
no,
just I'll have to watch Barbie. I'll cave. I'll cave. Yeah, I'll do it.
you
I heard
have
it's
to watch it.
long
It's
though.
very good.
Is it
It's
long?
not too bad. No, it's good. It's a very good movie. It like hits some of like our sort of social culture that's happening right now.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, in
okay.
a very brilliant way. Yes. Yes. But no, I didn't cry in Barbie.
You didn't cry in
And
Barbie.
I didn't cry in this podcast just to be
It's okay.
very
It's you,
clear.
here's this podcast is the judgment free zone. So
See, now
we
you're really sounding like a therapy session.
well I showed you. I mean, I have the pillows
You
to be a
started. First of
therapy.
all, this is a judgment free zone. It's a
Yeah.
safe
Yeah.
place.
You can
You can
yeah, be yourself. And you were.
yes, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I know you talked about being too hard on yourself, but like you don't need to be. It's okay if you cried. There's nothing wrong with
I,
it.
I did not. All right, Bryan.
Su-Ann Heng, this was so fun. Bryan Fenley here, and I appreciate you so much. This was a blast.
Thank you. I'll hopefully see you in Vegas.